Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences. And I focus in on areas to help organizations increase capacity and really focus in on strategy, people, process, and technology throughout life sciences. And so, if that would be of value to you, I definitely would love to hear from you. Today, my guest is Rajeev Sehgal. Rajeev is the Senior Director of Informatics at Azenta Life Sciences. Rajeev is responsible for development and execution of informatics strategy, including product management, development, SQA, delivery, and product. So, with that, welcome, Rajeev.
Good morning, Don. Thanks for having me here. Really looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I mean, just to be fair to the listeners as well, I know Rajiv from working with you at Becton Dickinson, so
Yeah.
a part of your history I know. I don't think that we ever really sat down and talked about throughout your career what sort of led you to the point that you're at Azenta, and would love to hear your story as well.
Sure. So right now I am Senior Director of Informatics at Azenta within the Sample Management Business Unit. I've been at Azenta for a year now. I've had a pretty, I would say, interesting journey in the sense that I am a computer science engineer by education. I have worked as a software engineer. I'm going to date myself by sharing that my first job out of college was working on the first handheld device that Apple made in mid 90s. It was called Newton. It was
Oh yeah,
though
yeah.
it was very very exciting coming out of college and working on a mobile device that never heard about there was mobile technology. So it was very exciting. So I worked as a software engineer for a few years before I really felt that I wanted to be more on the customer side of things, more business side of things. So went back to business school, moved into product management, and I actually entered life sciences industry only around 18 or 19 years ago. So first few years of my career were in telecom, and then I made a pretty hard right switch to life sciences. Have worked at Bayer, then Becton Dickinson, and now at Azenta. And it has been interesting that I've gone from telecom to working in radiology to microbiology, molecular testing, and point of care testing, and now into sample management. So the way I tell people is that I have made these switches, getting into industries where I really didn't have experience, but always found a way to learn and really apply everything that I've learned along the way into the new space.
Yeah, it's interesting to have a varied career inside of this space as well. I mean, just in general, cutting across healthcare is a bit of a challenge for a lot of people to understand, kind of how the depth and breadth of your experience translates. Whenever you go to communicate that with people, do you ever find that people, sort of struggle with understanding, like, how do they deal with you? Because you're an anomaly in one sense and not in the other, right? I mean, you have a very strong background in what you do and what you bring to a lot of companies.
That is true. Some people do, but then the other thing I always share with people is like I've been doing informatics now. I've been just doing informatics in healthcare for almost 14 years now. I've done it in radiology, done it in lab space, and now in sample management. And I feel that even though these are separate fields within healthcare and life sciences, but there is still so much commonality. At the end of the day, you're still trying to solve a problem for our customers so that we can improve patient care, whether it is for diagnostics and radiology or in the lab space or in the discovery and sample exploration area that we work in today. So at the end of the day, it is all about improving patient outcomes. And then, and I what I have found is that from purely informatics standpoint, the technical piece is still technology is technology. It's a question of how do you apply it for different problems in different spaces, and then how you take it to the market. The principles are still the same, I find.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it's just one of those things where I see, oftentimes with my resume, people just struggle with, like, you were at GE Healthcare, you were at Becton Dickinson, you were at Roche, you're a diagnostics guy, And I'm like, well, wait a minute, because I was a digital imaging guy before. I
Yeah.
was an informatics guy. I was been in a lot of different spaces, including diagnostics, and I'm proud
Yeah.
of that and my pharmaceutical knowledge as well. But I feel like there's just a lot of people whenever they look at people with varied backgrounds, they sort of struggle a little bit. But yeah, so
I have actually gone all the way from technologies which were directly at the patient side, whether it was point of care testing or CTMR, eye testing, and now all the way upstream where we are helping big pharma companies do research and develop vaccines and diagnostics. So I'm almost traversing it backwards. So
yeah, right. So in terms of the work that you do today, can you tell people just a little bit more about what your job encompasses today, and then we'll dive a little bit more into Azenta and what you're doing more specifically at the biobank.
I will maybe start with a little bit about Azenta, what we do, so that it becomes more clear on what myself and my team does, how it relates into that. So, Azenta as a company, as a brand name, is relatively new. So Azenta used to be part of Brooks Automation, Brooks Life Sciences company, which has been in business for, I think, almost 30, 40 years. But it was only a couple of years ago that they decided to peel off the life sciences business and make it into a company of its own. And then that's where the Zenta brand name came into being, only around, I think it is less than 2 years old at this point. So what Zenta focuses on, or what our mission in life is, really helping our customers. We are enabling breakthroughs for our companies or our customers and help them bring them to market faster. So as Zenta, we provide a very strong set of enterprise-wide sample exploration and management solutions that help our customers really accelerate their discovery, development, and delivery of vaccines, diagnostics, or any drug discovery that they're doing, and helping them bring that to market faster. So samples are, I would say, the life and blood of any research that you're doing in this space. Because, like, even if you look at drug discovery, you have to first of all look at the compounds that you're going to go after, or the molecules you're going to go after. After you do certain amount of preclinical research, then you do get to a point where you're going to do clinical research. So to do all that, you do need samples. Or even if we go back to our experience at Becton Dickinson, if you're developing a COVID diagnostic test, you need samples to create that test. So samples are the blood, and I would say, and sort of blood and breath of, or it is very critical to that whole process. So what we do at Azenta is that we provide a lot of, I would say, a very comprehensive set of products and services to help with that sample exploration and management. So we have products all the way from the collection of samples, and then sourcing those samples or transporting those samples, storing samples, and the storage can be on site where customers they can buy automated or freezers from us, and they can store and manage samples on their own. Or we have a very large business around off-site storage where you can basically outsource your storage, and then we provide obviously services that go around it. And then we have a very large genomics business as well, and that's where the sample exploration piece comes in, that if people want to do genomics testing and get really good insights out of it, we provide that too. And we wrap all of these things around with two things. One is consultative services that we provide across our businesses, and then informatics or the digital solutions. And that's where I come in for the sample management part of it, not the genomics part of it. So for that part of the business, I manage the informatics piece. So we offer actually a couple of different products to do very comprehensive sample management, which basically can traverse every aspect of sample from the point they are collected all the way to testing and storing and tracking consents and other things that go along with it.
Yeah, I mean it is such an important part of so much of the development in our space that happens, right? And it's one of those things where many people may not know or understand kind of what a biobank can provide, but I remember, in several of the diagnostics companies that I've been in, we've needed samples, and essentially, the only way to obtain them is to go to a source that has them already, and sort of readily can more readily provide them.
And also, when it comes to a biobank thing, meaning, Don, the big thing is not only be able to source the right sample, but the big thing is collecting the right data along with it,
Mm.
whether it is the patient demographic data, or once you have tested the sample, all the information that you're collecting, that becomes very, very useful. So the sample annotation is very critical. But at the same time, the sample does not become useful till you have all the consent piece along with it and all the metadata that goes along with it. So that's where the sample becomes useful, and that's where the sample management solution, or the informatics solution I'm talking about, that I manage, we provide all of those sort of informatics or the digital piece that goes along with it, so that samples really become very useful for our customers.
Yeah, so maybe we should talk a little bit more about that as well. So on the informatics side, I would imagine whenever you get a sample, you have some base information about that sample, but probably not a whole lot, right? I mean, if the patient had a disease, non-small cell lung cancer, as an example, they could. So you have this sample, you would know whether or not if it's male and female, rough age and things like that. But there's probably not a lot of information that you have. What then do you sort of does your solution or your platform at Azenta, continue to build then?
Yeah, so and that's really, I would say, the challenge. If you look at whether it is in sample management, or if you look at even the EHRs or the diagnostic world as well, that in healthcare you always have so many different systems that have pieces of information but not the complete picture. And in sample management it is no different. That you have companies and software that is used for when you are collecting the sample. So that's where you have the patient demographic information, some of the pre-existing conditions, or whatever else clinical data that is there. It may be in EHR, depending on where the sample is being collected, or it could be, if it is a CRO or some other specialized company offering samples sourcing services, then they will have their own software that is collecting all that data. And then by the time samples we start handling samples, we do get, it depends on the customers and how much data they want to share, because they obviously have a lot of that patient demographic data, the consent data is very, very critical, because you always want to make sure that you're using the right samples. And by right samples, it's not just that is it right for the testing, but also that you have the right consent and the authority and the rights to use that sample for that particular type of study. And also, these consents are valid only for a certain period of time. So, from a regulatory compliance perspective, you need to make sure that you have the rights for the use that you want to do. Because for regulatory compliance, you do have to store samples for quite a long period of time. And that's where the biobanks come in, that it's not just for storing samples for research, but also for regulatory compliance. They are the long term storage place for keeping samples for whatever regulatory compliance you need to have. So, from an informatics standpoint, our informatics solution is we basically have a biobanking LIMS solution that we offer, Lymfinity. That's our main product. Along with we have a couple of other software solutions as well, but they provide point functionality about like freezer management or tracking workflows between automation systems. But Lymfinity is the enterprise solution that we have that provides full service set of services that any biobanking solution would need. And we have the capability to record and take a lot of that demographic and the metadata information, but it all depends on how much information we can get access to, because it's all not natively stored in our solution. But all the sample metadata is obviously stored in our solution. But when it comes to like the patient demographics and all, they are not directly stored in our solution. So that's where the integrations come in, and also depends on how much information customers want to store in which system.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would imagine, tagging and keeping, the metadata, and making it valuable is it has got to be, an overall challenge with regards to integrating data as well as just, making sure that it's continually accurate, that it's providing the greatest use for the client as well.
Oh, definitely. Sample annotation is I would say, the biggest thing. That the more information you have, the more valuable the sample is. It's the sample is a sample, but the data along with it is what makes it really valuable or less valuable, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
In terms of customers that you have that frequently come, I guess at what level are you normally interacting with companies, and then also who normally would come and look to work with Azenta?
we actually work with all the large big pharma companies because we play like a very critical role in helping them with sample management as part of their research or diagnostic research and discovery. So big pharma, medtech, diagnostic companies, even academics. So anybody who is really doing research from diagnostic therapeutics or drug vaccines and those things, we work with all of those type of companies.
Very good. The next question, I added this question, recently to several of my episodes because as I started to look back and started to reflect more about the interactions with all of you as leaders, there's probably leadership advice that you've received, along the way that's valuable, for everybody to know about, and I love asking these things because it really helps me better understand, sort of what what other leaders might sort of give you for advice. So what's the best leadership advice that you ever received?
I would say it has been in my career. First of all, I've been very lucky to have some very, very good leaders and mentors along the way. Some of the advice I would say has been direct, but I would say majority of it has been from observation. So one thing that I have learned along the way is that every manager, every boss, every leader teaches you something. Some of them teach you how to do things right, and some teach you how not to do things. And I have learned along the way on both sides of things. That doesn't mean that I do everything well. I don't. I'm still work in progress and still have a lot to improve upon. But I would say I would start all the way from my first foray into product management, and I'm really going back to when I was not even in healthcare, and my first boss that was there. I don't think anybody could have a better boss when you're starting out in product management than him. Meaning he was uh, like so patient with me, and so he taught me patience, that you have to be kind and patient and give people time to learn and encourage them always. So, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail even in front of the customers. I still remember my first customer call presentation I made, and I could hardly breathe, and it was an awful presentation. And even after that, he told me that, no, you did great for a first presentation. That was awesome. And I was worried that he will not let me present to a customer again. And he was like, no, you did really good. So that was very good, that learning patience and being kind, giving people time to learn. And then I would say one of the other pieces that I've learned along the way is empathy and accountability and
Mm.
taking them together. And being empathetic doesn't mean that you don't hold people accountable, because to me accountability is very, very big. I'm very big on that, that we work in a real world. We have our responsibilities within our organization, both to customers as well as internal stakeholders, and we need to make sure that we do everything to basically deliver on commitments. One other piece that I would say, this is the direct advice I've gotten, and you may have heard it during your BD days as well, Don, is as a leader, being ambidextrous, be able to think about strategically and at the same time be able to execute on a day-to-day basis too. And this is one thing that I find, probably I feel that I do decently well is that always when I'm thinking strategically, I have to be able to, in my mind, be able to see how am I going to execute on this. Because if strategy doesn't lead to good execution path, then I'm not sure what's the value of that strategy. Execution has to be there. So to me, that was a very good advice. That was the direct advice I've gotten, that always think about that, that think strategically, but at the same time have your pulse on how you're going to execute and do well. The other one I would say is this is more on observing. I would say not just even in directly business world, even in, I would say, sports, or I would say in Hinduism, there's a scripture Gita, and it all talks about the process part. That don't focus on the result, focus on the process. So if you focus on the process and you get the process right and continue to improve it, results will come. Okay, so that's the other piece that I try, meaning I'm not sure how, I don't think I'm very good at it still, but I always keep reminding myself that if we get the steps right and we can make them repeatable and have some way of continually improving it, results will show up ultimately. And that is something that meaning not just from that scripture, but there's a very famous Indian captain of a cricket team in India. He doesn't play anymore, but that was his always thing, that yes, winning is important, but if the process is not right, you're not going to get consistent results over a long period of time. So those are some of the things that I would say. And one last thing I would say that I would say it's my own personal thing, is that be kind to yourself as well.
Mm.
That can't do everything, and especially when you join a new company, new role, sometimes we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to deliver right way. And this was other advice that actually I got when I had joined my first life sciences company, that somebody told me that he had asked me that so what do you plan to achieve in 30, 60, 90 days? And I was with all my enthusiasm, though I'll do this and that. And he said, no, in the first maybe 6 months, you should just shut up and listen and don't try to contribute, because you have so much to learn. And then only start to really look at where you can add value and start to do things. So I would say being kind to yourself is important as well, because sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves, and especially when you are new in a role and or in a new organization.
Yeah, it's I mean, giving yourself the grace to learn and also make mistakes. I mean, you talked about, your first customer presentation. I mean, I think we've all had them, right? Where we, essentially just our nerves got the best of us,
Yeah,
during the presentation, and rather than getting to the meat of the presentation, we were so concentrated on the pain of the anxiety. I can
yeah,
completely understand that one as well.
exactly. Yeah,
And then, I mean, it's interesting to me to hear the both the parts of being ambidextrous with, both focusing on the strategy and the execution. There's a lot of the work that I do today really focuses on organizations that are trying to scale. And one of the first conversations that we have, often, that I oftentimes have with, founders is, this idea of, really making sure that everybody in the organization knows the vision, knows where you want to go, and can help you. I mean, so many times, you go into an organization and the vision is really some fluffy thing that marketing has spent a lot of time on to try and make it sound good. And the whole idea behind it is, showing people the way that you want them to be in the future. And so, and then thinking through taking those steps is something that everybody has to do inside the
exactly.
organization. And
Yep.
so many leaders tell me, I don't want you to focus there. I don't want to start there. That's not where I want to go. And at the same time, the first few conversations that you have in the organization, people are like, well, we're so thankful that finally we can start to tie this thing that they want from us to what we can do to support it.
I would say that you're absolutely right in the sense that ultimately it is the people who are doing on the front lines. They
Hmm.
are the ones who are really bringing that vision and mission to life for our customers on a day to day basis. And if there is no clear alignment from top to bottom, all you get is a lot of chaos. And I've been in those places as well, and I've seen that is one thing that at Azenta, I would say, even when I have taken over, I came in taking over the informatics business. That was one of the things that me and my leadership team really focused on was that, okay, yes, there is an Azenta vision and mission, and then how do we create something that is directly related to our company's vision and mission, but a little bit more specific to informatics, that how we become part of it, and then making sure that our team fully understands that, okay, what does that mean to us, and how do we connect and relate that to the overall company's mission and vision and mission. So to me, I think that's a pretty critical point.
Yeah, so important to do as a new leader with any organization. So, very smart move on your part. There are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Uh, there are quite a few things that inspire me. I would say the biggest one, I would say, from a professional standpoint, is just doing something that will have a patient impact. I think
Mm.
that really gets me really excited and inspired, or seeing people who are doing things that will have impact on patient care. And that's why, whether I've been in radiology or in the diagnostic lab or now in sample management, to me, that has been the common thread, that ultimately we are doing things to improve patient care. So that is always, always very inspiring to me. The second one is my colleagues. I would say right now I work with quite a few colleagues who are doing amazing work. They're very creative. They really understand sample management, how it really helps our customers and ultimately the patients. And so I learn a lot from them on a daily basis. I still have a lot to learn in sample management. So they inspire me a lot. And similarly, I've had similar experiences at BD and Bear, and those people, even though I don't work with them today, I still see the work they're doing, and that's still very inspiring to me. Um, on the personal level, I would say that there are a couple of people who do inspire me a lot. My brother, he's an entrepreneur in India. I don't know a more hardworking and more visionary in my life personally than him. Uh, he has a small to medium sized business right now, and he has seen some really low lows, and he has come back from them. And just seeing the dedication and the resiliency that he has, that is very, very inspiring to me. And meaning, I don't know how many people would have that kind of resiliency. So that's been always very inspiring to me. And the other two, I would say, is my daughter. My elder one, she started working year and a half ago. She's only 19, so she works part time along with going to college. And just seeing how she's handling the stress of work, the responsibilities, the accountability she's taking. Like I said earlier, accountability, that part is big of for me. That there are certain things that, meaning as an individual, you have to decide what defines you. And that attitude of hard work, taking accountability and responsibility, meaning to me is meaning intelligence. Is a lot of people are intelligent and you can work hard and gain skills, but having these skills about being hardworking, having the right attitude, taking accountability and responsibility for your work, uh, that does not, you can't just learn it in a day. It has to be somewhat innate in you, and I see that in my daughter, and that I find very inspiring. And then the last one I would say is my niece. She is a few years older than my daughter. She started a non-profit consulting company while she was in college during the COVID time. So she came up with the idea that during COVID time, a lot of small businesses were really struggling to make their ends meet and they needed help. So she came up with this idea of providing free consulting to those small size companies so that they can recover from COVID. And the way she did it was she did a little bit of a crowdsourcing model, that a lot of MBA or BBA students who are in college, they are looking for experience. So they didn't need money to get paid. And so she created this model, and they actually have helped quite a few companies. And it was very inspiring to see, like, whether it's my younger generation with my niece and my daughter, and seeing how they look at the world and how they go about it is very inspiring. So,
Very interesting. What concerns you?
uh, One thing that always bothers me or concerns me at work is, I would say, is that when people hide behind processes to stop progress, processes, in my view, are there to actually streamline and make us more effective, not to slow us down. So I'm a big proponent of meaning let's make progress every day, even if it is a half a step. That's okay. But let's do something to move things forward. And if we learn that we took a wrong step, let's adjust and move in a slightly different direction than not do anything. So to me, that is always the concern or analysis paralysis, that a lot of time you find that people just want like nth degree of data before they will want to make a decision. And I'm like, sometimes yes, you can do that wait for more data, but life works with a lot of ambiguity, so you
Mhm.
have to make the best decision, and but then be nimble, that if you learn something that makes you switch your gears, then you go ahead and do that. So I would say those couple of things are what generally concern me from a professional perspective, or like the other thing we were talking about earlier, that you have a vision, but really nobody understands it, how that relates to your day-to-day work, or how that really comes to life. And related to that, that a lot of people are very comfortable talking about strategy, but have no clue what that means from execution. And those type of discussions do like get me disinterested. I wouldn't say that they frustrate me, but they get me like I zone out. That okay, if there is no path to execution, why are we? Yes, sometimes free form brainstorming are good, but at some point you have to figure out, okay, is it really a realistic strategy, executable strategy or not? So those would be the things I would say.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same thing with I mean, visioning exercises. It's to me, it's interesting to think of a 3 or 5 year vision overall. That's an interesting thing to do, but then there has to be a point where you say, okay, let's pivot from thinking about what the future will be to what is it actually going to take to deliver this
Okay.
thing. And
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
so many consultants that go into organizations that provide their ultimate idea, and then they drop it off, and then it's left for the team that is executing to try and
Yeah.
figure out how is this thing going to be executed. It's like,
Exactly.
why wouldn't you take it that one last step and at least force the team to think about reality, because it's
Yeah.
I mean, if I go back to the Newton as an example, right? Great device, but before its time.
Yeah.
And without the internet, um, that's where our iPads and phones and everything else became this game changer. It's like, look, I'm
Exactly.
carrying a computer in my pocket that's connected all the time. What a game changer! But again, it's one of these things where I feel like I agree with you. It's you could be very concerned about you know just having a vision of the future that isn't connected to reality in some way as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question: what excites you?
Right now, I would say the technological advances with AI, they are very, very exciting. Like even in our space, meaning I think there is so much potential because today I'd say our customers, I mean, they're always trying to figure out, okay, what samples do I need to do a certain type of research? So to me, it is a great use case for AI or machine learning to look at all the data you have, including all the metadata, the demographic information, all the clinical data you have around samples, and be able to say that okay, if you are trying to create a diagnostic test for say prostate cancer or lung cancer, or you're looking for a vaccine, that these are the type of samples that you really need to look for. And even for precision medicine, that people in Asia versus people in Africa or US, they have different the way the bodies work or they react to different things are different. So how do you use all the data and the machine learning and AI to develop some of more precise solutions? I think that excites me a lot, the possibilities of that. um, and I would say, even in my day-to-day work right now, there is so much opportunity for Azenta to do well. because we are still relatively smaller player in that space, and we have some of the best solutions in the world, from sample exploration and solution and sample management board, that we have so much opportunity to make a difference in our customers workflows, helping them really get their therapeutics and drug discoveries to market faster, and which will obviously help the patient. That part is supremely exciting to me, and also directly from my informatics business perspective, same thing holds, that we are at a point where we can really grow fast and really make a difference both internally and externally. And personally, I would say just seeing my kids grow, that is very exciting, that they're growing up. Just the thing I shared about my elder daughter, I find very exciting, that she's growing up into a very nice young, I would say, young woman, and entering, once she will be done in college in a few years, and then starting to start her life. Very exciting. So.
Such an exciting time in life, and yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. The I completely agree with you on the technology side, and from a family perspective, we've gone through a lot of those transitions in my family. So my kids have been out of the house for a while and been through college and things like that, and it is a very exciting time to watch them sort of take the things that they've learned, I would say under you for a while, right? And then now they get to that point where now that they're more or less steering the ship, so
Yeah.
you as a parent just more or less have to watch a lot of the things and provide a little guidance here and there, right?
It is nerving as well, because they are still your babies. You don't want them to get hurt in any way, shape, or form. But still, to see that they are able to do things and they are becoming person of themselves, of their own, is very exciting. So
Yeah.
I just, I like I said, meaning I see her, or even my nieces, meaning it's very exciting and inspiring to see, like, the things they can do. And I compare when I was their age what I could do. I was like, they are going to do wonderfully well in life, given where I started and where I am, and the head start they have. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rajeev Sehgal, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here, and it was great to hear all of the work that's going on at Azenta as well.
no, thank you, Don. It has been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.